Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Weekend Frivolity. Sounds like we're live on YouTube, so that's encouraging. It's working, but please be aware, everyone, that YouTube, Google is going to be making some big changes in the way these YouTube videos work with the on-air hangouts at the end of the month. So things are going to be really messy. I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle this, but we just got to roll with the punches. PMA for the win, all that kind of fun stuff. I think the private videos are still going to work the same way. I think that this online service is going to change with this amount of people in the hangout with me, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, this is our free broadcast, our weekend sort of summary of what we at TRI see in the market here. So we'll try our best. And I got to say, right off the bat, the only reason why I did this whole course, this whole school, everything, the only reason was because I'm trying to make a positive difference in this world. It's the only reason. We tried to keep the course and the material really low cost, but you have to understand, everybody, building these websites like you see this, I mean, gee whiz, this stuff is expensive. I mean, these programmers and stuff, they're just, oh my goodness. So we have to charge something. I would love to give away all this information for free. I really would. But please understand, I'm trying to make a positive difference. I'm not trying to screw over anybody. I'm not trying to bilk people for money. I'm simply here trying to make a positive difference. I do completely understand, and I completely empathize with you. I believe in the crypto story. I believe in it. I love these developers. I love the community that you guys are so youthful and you're so vibrant, and you want to succeed. You want to strive to make this world a better place. You want to try and hold politicians accountable. You want to try and make your currency have some value to it, and not be manipulated for political ends. I get it. What's really interesting is I think people like CNBC are finally getting it about Bitcoin and this whole idea that this millennial generation has had enough of the politicians messing around to serve their own purposes and diluting currencies and purchasing power and creating artificial inflation. I get it. But at the same time, too, guys, I mean, this is a brand new space. It's highly, highly speculative. And unfortunately, everybody try and remember Cabbage Coin guy. If you don't know about Cabbage and you don't know about Cabbage Coin, then please do yourself a favor and look into it. There's a lot of nefarious people in this space as well. So I can understand that a lot of these quote unquote altcoin, shitcoin, stuff like that. This is very, very speculative stuff that we're dealing with here in this space. And price movement is dramatic. In our education program, and I love the fact that our current level 1 instructor, he requires all of the new students to take 100 paper trades before you actually start risking your own hard-earned money in the market. I really love that. And I often encourage a lot of our new people to our education program to put your money away. Learn the process. And what I'm really saddened to see is that a lot of people didn't listen to that. And they just jumped right in, not really perfecting this profession that we're trying to learn about building trading plans. And they sort of selectively heard what they wanted to hear to justify the fact that they bought. I'm not making any excuses. I mean, risking your money in the marketplace is hard work. This is not easy. And And, one of the reasons why I built sort of like the little old lady plan was that, yeah, okay, you're going to put small little bits of money into different stories and you're just going to let it work. And the idea of like little old ladies was that you're just going to have your money working in the marketplace. And if the idea goes off the board, well, so be it. But it doesn't make a material impact on your life. I'm really, really saddened, and I feel the community's pain, especially those people that participated in altcoins. I do this Broiler Chicken Show dovetailing with right after the level 1 program, and actually, I love to see what was going on in the level 1 course this morning. People are really trying to learn these concepts. I'll go through some of the concepts that Grim was talking about this morning for further clarification. If there are any level 1ers on the course, on the call, and you have any further questions about the material, I think we did MACD divergences today. Please ask, right? I really, really want people to feel as though they're getting value for their money spent in this level 1 course. So just sort of a PMA message. And I understand, interestingly enough, I actually think like I have a job here. And my job is to challenge all of you. Keep in mind, I've got this crypto portfolio, and anything that I've bought over the past couple of years, I haven't sold anything. I sell half on a double. That's basically what this plan was all about. But I haven't liquidated any of the free positions. I will hold them. And, the politicians are coming down really hard on sites like Trex right now. And Trex is trying desperately to survive through this. It's painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And often, I was a broker through the .com boom, and we saw a lot of stocks just go right out of business through the bust following that cycle peak. I think, for the current level 1ers and those level 1ers that have recently, completed the course, man, we got a really, really good lesson in these long-term demographic cycles. I really think that Bitcoin and altcoins just were the fear asset proxy for this demographic cycle. So that is, frankly speaking, when I look back on it, I'm almost shocked at how similar the price action has been. If we use Bitcoin versus gold and Ethereum versus silver kind of thing through the 1980 fear cycle apex. So the course material about strategic planning was, I got to say, man, looking back in hindsight, I'm almost shocked at how dramatic it was. But nonetheless, the point that I'm trying to make here is that I believe that a big part of my job, and I'm more than happy to do it and embrace it, is I'm going to try, and week after week after week, I'm not going anywhere. I'm long crypto. I'm in there, right? I've got all these quote unquote free positions, and some of the positions that I bought are underwater as this sort of demonstration portfolio. I haven't sold out. I haven't changed the message, but I challenge all of you that, yeah, maybe over the next year or two, things are going to be a bit tough. But I will be here week in, week out to hold your hand, and we'll get through this. I am Mr. PMA. The great part about the market is that over time, things will clean themselves up, and we'll go back into speculative cycles, and prices will start working their way up again. Does your story survive? That's a big function of sort of the fundamental analysis that I encourage all of you to really, really dig into if you are considering purchasing crypto. In fact, even, I'm trying to talk fundamental analysis with some of the guys that have been working in the industry for like 30 years on sites like CNBC. I'm quite I was actually quite pleased to see this little commentary here. You know, one of these guys, Joe Kernan, who I've literally watched forever. I mean, this guy's been on CNBC since I think day one. And I think he's finally getting it about this whole Bitcoin cryptocurrency revolution. But I've even challenged him. You know, we have to understand, if we're rational investors, there's two parts of this equation. What is fundamental value? And then secondly, can we justify pulling the trigger looking at the price chart or technical analysis? So I challenge all of you, right? All of you to exactly what I've done here with Joe Kernan. Is let's try and figure out what value is on these names. And what I'm really worried about is that through that last sort of, 2017 face rip cycle, nobody took the time to figure out what value is for these things. I had one recent level oneer, and I was so proud of him and the community, because they put the time and effort in. And this gentleman in particular, I think I still have that chart on here. This gentleman in particular, he sat down and he tried to figure out, okay, what is the cost of production for one Bitcoin? And I find it fascinating that, turns out that we bottomed around $3,000. And his analysis at this point in time, I never put the date on here. I don't know where Tony is. Tony's usually on these calls. I don't know, Tony, if you were over on YouTube. Give me a shout. We have to figure out what date it is you did this up. But I thought this was fascinating that his cost of production came out to roughly $2,600. And the market ultimately bottomed right around $3,000. So, if we look at the Bitcoin story right now, I'm worried that people are going to start, just FOMOing and not doing either fundamental analysis, what is value, especially with something like a commodity like Bitcoin, and then secondly, is this such an appropriate place for us to be pulling the trigger? I don't know. Well, actually, Faisal, it's cool that you asked that. I mean, what's fascinating is I did 2 altcoin purchases over the past few months. 2. One of them was an idea that somebody asked me about on one of these Broiler Chicken shows, and I kind of liked the idea, so I pulled the trigger, and there it is. It's just sitting there within 1 sat of basically where we bought it. And then the Doge, I pulled the trigger here at 32, 33, and it's sitting here at 29. So to directly answer your question, Fazil, I mean, basically nothing's happening here, which is fine. To me, this is actually very normal in the market. Right? We're just sort of bumping along here, just picking our nose. So Fazil, does that answer your question? Fazil just there, I just looked over and I saw, he says, how's your Doge position doing? Yeah, it's just bumping along. If we lose these lows, as I've pointed out on the site, I don't think I talk to you guys in the public too much, but if we blow these lows out, then I'm gone. I'll just close the position out. Yeah, in fact, I used to do shows with, and this is a really interesting tell of this space, everybody, especially you people on YouTube, right, or maybe not that familiar with the crypto space. But I used to do a show with another sort of a fundamentalist, one of the devs, and he was sort of a promoter dev for a coin called Ubic. And what was really interesting was that when the market broke there in early 2018, he just literally disappeared, and he doesn't return any of my PMs. I think he's basically, and the last comment I heard from him was, I'm just going to lay low for the next while. So I don't know. But if anything, I think, looking back in hindsight, that was a really interesting tell about this space. But anyway, this gentleman, and I won't mention his name, but he said anytime Doge gets below 40 sats, he absolutely loves to buy. Fibber, flip. What was that guy's name? And the weird thing is, that's the one thing I don't like about this space is that people don't really like to talk in their real names. So I never actually learned Frog. I guess you. I don't know whether you're talking about, and I don't even know what the guy's name was. I think his name was Andre, but I'm not positive. But there was a guy um, on TradingView eons ago that I worked with very briefly. I think his name was Flibber. I'm not even quite sure. Anyway, somebody asked on YouTube, and actually, it's good that we mention this. I post this on the site daily. This is basically the only two altcoins that I've bought in over the, I guess, basically the past 4 or 5 months. And they're just sitting there. They're just not doing anything, which, if anything, in my eyes, is actually a good sign. So, anyway, I wanted to just start this whole sort of conversation off with a big sort of dose of PMA. I am more than happy. Like I said, I'm not going anywhere. If you want to participate on the site, we try and keep the cost as low as possible. I get sticker shock all the time. I don't know whether you guys are aware, but according to my educational designations and all that stuff, I used to think when I was, I guess in my 20s and 30s, probably the age that you guys were, that, my income aspirations, $100,000 a year is actually a pretty good income. Then I went on Google recently, and it turns out that according to my professional designations and all that, I'm actually supposed to be earning $200,000 a year. So it's almost like the value of money has fallen in half since what I sort of perceived as good income levels. So ironically enough, $1,000 in my eyes, that seems like a lot of money. But in reality, it's like maybe $500 in my dollars. So I think we, for the education program, I think we have a pretty good price point on this education program, considering it's like 12 weeks long for our level 1 program. I think it's good value for your money spent. And in the education program, the level 1 program is called Introduction to Capital Markets, which I think we give a pretty good overall introduction to the markets. We talk about, various different assets that are in the market, stocks, bonds, commodities, which I clearly think crypto falls into that category, fiat currencies. We also talk about appropriate asset allocation. You should never, ever put all your eggs in one basket. I think everybody going through the level 1. Colleen, did you get that message when you went through the level 1 program? I love to use Colleen. She's such an absolutely solid student. She shows up every day, every class. She does her homework. I think she's just an absolutely excellent role model for new people on the site. And for whatever it's worth, I do understand that, this can, to a certain degree, be a boys' club. And we even have like a ladies' lounge at TRI, so that if, ladies and females would like to participate and don't want to get sucked into sort of that boys' club vortex, there's even a safe environment for the ladies to participate in if they so choose. But Colleen's basically said, yes, she, in the hangout here, she said, yes, of course we learned about asset allocation. I have heard the message recently that's not the case, but I have to tell you from day one, everybody, that this is critical. In our library, we have tons and tons of resources here, but in our images and videos, right? And I've done the Broiler Chicken Show, and I've talked a little bit about this. But you have to understand that, like the very first thing right out of the gate, what you should do is take your age, subtract it from 100, and that's the maximum risk you're really allowed to of your overall portfolio that you're allowed to put into risk assets. And, this is like financial planning 101. So if you didn't get this message before, please understand that when we're dealing in the crypto space, we are at the very, very cutting edge of risk here. And then even within this space, you want to have like many different plans and many different ways to attack this. Little old lady can be one, leverage trading. In our education program, the level oneers right now are going through learning things like El Tangonator setups and the 3-step setups and the bot setups. Those are primarily for those people that are taking risk in the market, and if the idea is wrong, they have to basically get out, which I think is perfectly appropriate. So, in our education program, we ask you, look in the mirror and identify what type of risk taker you are. And then we have about 4 different types of risk takers in our level 1 education program that we talk to you about. And at the end of the day, I can't tell you what type of risk taker you are. You simply have to decide on your own. If you decide that you want to be a little old lady, you don't want to be watching the screen, you don't want to get stopped out, then that means that you have to take extremely small bets. Maybe we call it nanny nibbling on the site, where you just little itty bitty nibbles, and dollar cost average your way into names over time. But you have to understand that the little old lady is not really that interested in the market. She just wants to have her money working in the market. Okay. But she's busy playing canasta. She's out working in the garden. I absolutely love Grim. Grim calls his little old lady risk management setup within the altcoin space is planting flowers. I mean, what a perfect sort of juxtaposition. Little old lady planting flowers in the garden. Sometimes those flowers could take, keep in mind, Goldman Sachs, I've talked to you guys about this before. Goldman Sachs came out and recommended to their clients to buy Bitcoin at $1,100 back in 2014. But the way they got away with it, and basically it turned out to be a good recommendation, was they had right at the bottom, you have to have a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And I might argue within 3 to 5 years after that, let's say 2018, 3 to 5 years would put us like 2021 to 2023. I wouldn't be surprised that once we head into that window, we're going to go through another one of these crazy ass speculative moves. And my promise to everybody on YouTube, to all of my people on the TRI site, is I'm not going anywhere. I will be here in 2021, 2022, 2023, and I challenge each and every one of you not to lose your head and just maybe go about doing other things in your life and just simply wait. If you are a Joe Sixpack, which is another type of risk taker in our education program. I don't know whether I can show you that or not. I don't think I have that just off of this here. But we have various different types of risk takers. And keep in mind, Joe Sixpack is what most of the people in the world, and when I was a broker, most of my clients were Joe Sixpack. That's why it's called Joe Sixpack. Not everybody's a little old lady, right? A lot of you guys are pretty young guys. You're like, what the hell, man? I'm not a little old lady. I'm a Joe Sixpack. Joe Sixpack, if you take a 50% loss on the trade, you got to walk away from it and just cut it and walk away. So, if you decided to be a little old lady, well, you're just sitting there on your positions. And this is, ironically enough, this might be a question about, what are the developers of the coins doing? If this is in the altcoin space, what are the developers doing? If you're buying penny stocks, even if you're buying blue chip stocks, what are the directors of the company doing? Have they blown themselves up? Was this a case of cabage, right? I'm hearing a lot of like altcoins. There's scuttlebutt now that the lawyers are starting to get ready to start going after these developers. That wouldn't surprise me, you know. Again, as I sort of started off this call, this is an extremely venture cap, risky investment space. No doubt about it whatsoever. And could there be some nefarious characters, Cabage Coin, through this mix? And we might see some of these little old lady ideas completely disappear and go bankrupt? Absolutely. It's definitely a possibility through this space. One thing I might suggest is we've got an interesting situation here in that we have what's called systemic risk, in that these exchanges are going through their growing pains. I mean, fingers crossed. I hope for Trex's sake that they make it through this. I really do. I would like to see them succeed. But, you know, being within the United States and not being sort of in that inner circle and them, you know, having listed a few coins that they're the only markets that have listed them, the names on Trex are pretty vulnerable. And I don't think Trex is sort of part of that sort of 1% crowd. Like Poloniex was bought out by Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is obviously a part of that 1% community. So to a certain degree, but Goldman Sachs is going through the delisting process as well, or Poloniex is going through the delisting process as well. But I think, you know, we actually, and this is a really good history lesson, because through the Great Depression, the American hierarchy basically made it illegal for their U.S. citizens to buy gold as an investment proxy because they feared that people would not want to own the U.S. dollar. So how do you make sure that your population owns the U.S. dollar and does not revert back to owning gold as their currency? I know. Let's make it illegal for our citizens to own this asset class. Is the U.S. structure hierarchy doing the same thing to Bitcoin? I don't think Bitcoin, but to altcoins, I think to a certain degree, yes, they are trying to do the same to the altcoin space right now. It'll be interesting to see because, you know, like even the president of the United States has come out recently and said he does not believe in Bitcoin. He does not believe in cryptocurrency. The only currency in the world is the US dollar. I believe that, you know, the powers that be in the United States of America do not want the public to start using Bitcoin as an alternative to the US dollar, because that's going to, you know, erode the hegemony that we've seen since the end of the Cold War. And even Alan Greenspan himself said, you know, probably 10, 15 years ago, the United States, because they are the dominant superpower of the world and basically their currency is the reserve currency, they can spend as much money as they want. They can go into as much deficit as they want. They can blow up their budgets. They don't care. All they got to do is just print more money and nobody has any choice. And that's basically exactly what's happened over the past 10, 15 years. Could Bitcoin and could cryptocurrency erode that and eat into that model? Absolutely. And I think to a certain degree it has. So anyway, lots of rants from Brian to start off here this morning. I apologize for wasting all of your time. But I really wanted to drive home the fact that I empathize with the community. This is tough. If you believed in this altcoin space and you believed in these stories and you believed this is a difficult environment. And I think, you know, over the next couple of years, it's probably not going to change a heck of a lot. It's going to continue to be very difficult. And I'm here. I'm here to try and help as much as I possibly can. That's why I do these free shows on the weekend. You know, nobody's forcing me to do this every single week. And now every single day we have like a 10-minute summary that we spit out. And it's about 15 minutes. Still trying to get control of that. But every single day I spit out free content. I'm trying to help. I really am. And my promise to you is I'm not going anywhere. I will continue to try and help. That's why I'm here. I want to make a positive difference in this world. I'm not here to screw you people over. And I feel really, really badly that the way this has gone is that some people feel as though I'm some sort of shill. So anyway, rant done. Let's get on with the Twitter feed. Still haven't seen any specific questions coming out of the level oneers. Did we have some level oneer questions? I appreciate that, guys. I appreciate Mr. Coin, Sebastian, of course, Joshua. I love Joshua. Joshua is just the bestest. Thank you, Andre. All you guys over on YouTube. I appreciate your positive sentiment, but I really want people to understand I'm not here to shill. Okay, let's move on. And as I said earlier, you can maybe, if you are in the level 1 course, well, Colleen, there are people that do think that I've purposely tried to like literally commit fraud. And it breaks my heart. It really does. So I'm saddened by it all. Anyway, let's get on with it. So last YouTube show here, and this is a great commentary. I absolutely guarantee you, any of you that think that you're going to come into trading and you're going to learn this system and this setup and you're always going to be right and you're guaranteed to make money and you're going to make money all of the time, get used to the new reality. And maybe trading isn't really for you, but you will be wrong. I suppose, any of my altcoin nanny nibbles that I did over the past couple of years since that 2017 peak, they look like poop right now. I fully acknowledge it. That's why they're nanny nibbles. But the point here is that we actually did last week's public broadcast while the market was still moving up and people were feeling pretty positive. How quickly things change, eh? But I think we actually did through the broadcast. We were talking a little bit about a potential bullish setup that was coming in on ETH. Here it is. And hopefully you can see, there's a nice move there to there, expecting AB equals CD harmonic. You can see the W's. You can see our little algo that I built. Was telling us to be bullish, but full disclosure, no doubt about it, this setup failed. And if you are trading these kind of setups, then you're not a little old lady. You are a leverage trader, and you have to respect when these setups fail, and you just simply have to close out your position. You have to. You have no choice. And actually, we had a few people on the site who did take this setup. And I was actually very proud of them that basically when the setup failed, you had to walk. It was interesting sort of following that Broiler Chicken Show. I was already starting to see sort of signs of things that bothered me. Through this event that was sort of last week, the bullish tone within the market was extremely high. And yet, when I looked at things like the spreads, and actually I put out a tweet just the other day, actually just today. And the level 2ers, they're going through learning how to build spread matrices and stuff. And sort of this idea of contango and backwardization and how I learned this, being a futures broker. Something didn't make sense to me. If Bitcoin is a bull, then what we should be seeing is higher highs and higher lows, but something disconnected here back the latter part of June there, right? We all went to crazy face rippy highs. Spreads actually went to pretty wide premiums over cash. And then all of a sudden something went wrong, and this top one, this is Bitcoin, there's Litecoin, there's Ethereum. You can see the very noticeable M in Bitcoin. Litecoin, not so much, but a really, really well-defined M there on Ethereum. When we were talking, I guess, through that last show, we were starting to see these little W's, and I was optimistic. I was hoping, okay, maybe we can break out and get some inertia here, but there was anecdotal evidence that this market wasn't overly happy. This is a really, really good lesson for everybody, in that these momentum coils, often you can get like a breakout and then you're like rah rah bull, and then the previous highs don't get taken out and the market rolls over and actually confirms a new M. So coming out of this event, we had a really nice coil, and you can see the ABCD projection. Now, this set up, interestingly enough, on Bitcoin, this did set up actually a really cute little bullish bot setup. And, in last week's show, we talked about the Ethereum one. And, this is probably a really interesting commentary on sort of Bitcoin dominance. I don't necessarily need to get into stock ideas here today, but did a really, really good trade on Overstock through last week. Feeling pretty good about that. Here is that bot setup on Bitcoin that we talked, the ABCD, painting like 13,339. This is actually a funny commentary on the fact that when I was a prop trader, now that's like 5-6 years ago, there were guys that I used to work with that absolutely hated indicators. They just I just trade levels. The only thing I do is I trade levels. And here's a really good example where, had you taken this bot setup, there's the 25 level, and just risked a new lows, the algo just never went bull. And I guess in hindsight, being 2020, I guess it makes sense why the algo never went bull. But in essence, this setup fired on the bot, and sure enough, the market went zipping right up to that bot target. I think this was, you can see the in this tweet, right, the coil turned into a channel, and there's that Bitcoin rally heading up into that bot objective. But this was interesting. Remember, we saw this a few minutes ago where momentum tried to push up. Was it going to be able to break out through the top there? And unfortunately, I don't think we ever got up through the top there. Silly little tweets. Fascinating conversation here. I'm not trying to be insulting to who this person was. And if you are watching this video, my apologies if you were insulted by this. I didn't want to pick you out. That's why I basically tried to black out their name. But this is fascinating, where you get sort of like the public saying, oh, more bullish breakouts. And then literally, in my Twitter feed, I follow a whole bunch of people. And the next tweet right below it was from this gentleman who is basically an industry veteran and one hell of a smart trader. In fact, he built his own indicators called Bollinger Bands, where he's saying, you know what, this is actually looking a little dangerous. So, please don't be insulted if this is you and you're watching this. It wasn't meant to pick you out in particular, but it was a fantastic analogy of how the public usually thinks when the market's moving up and how professionals think. Really, really good example. I really like this gentleman's work, Mitoshi Kaku. He's been doing a lot of GAN studies on time windows. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with his work. I really like following you, sir. If you are watching this, whatever it's worth, or if you're a friend of him, just let him know that I like this. Keep in mind that, I used to be a VSE penny broker, penny stock broker, nickel stock, dime stock, whatever the hell you want to call it. And so I'm actually very active in the penny stock market right now, just because, and really you could argue penny stocks are very similar to altcoins, as sort of like the tier of speculative investments. Bitcoin would be your blue chips, right? Your IBMs, your Procter and Gamble's, your Goldman Sachs's. Is Goldman in the Dow? I don't even know. But like big blue chip, and then things like I don't know, pick any of these altcoins, right? Lisk or Ubic or library credits, right? That would be sort of similar to this kind of stock. Like this is a nickel stock, and hopefully everybody who's done the education program with TRI can see Willie stupid, market oversold, bullish momentum divergences in MACD indicators, big volume coming in on the buy side. This stock happens to meet the criteria of my fundamental model that I follow in the penny stock market called VCIM. And actually, we've banged out at least a half a dozen doubles on these various different stocks over the past few months on these. And actually, we even had a crypto name that paid us that was a VCIM stock on this recent stock, Bitcoin rally. So, when you see tweets like this speaks very much to my VCIM model and what I used to do as a penny stockbroker. More really interesting. I love Olga's work. Fascinating. This is part of our level 2 program where we study WD GAN. And unfortunately, we just, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go with GAN? You start off with just understanding this idea that price and time are connected. And then we move on to understanding this concept called the vibrational signature of an asset and how you can actually project arcs and time horizons, horizontal and vertical support and resistance, time transition windows based on that vibrational signature. Then Mr. Gann, we move on to studying things like the square of 9 and the hexagon. And trying to understand arcs, and this whole idea that if you think of like a raindrop when it hits a puddle, how time is only really relevant based on the event horizon of the raindrop hitting the puddle, and everything has to move out in perfect uniformity, both size of reaction. Think of the vibrational signature as sort of the droplet hitting the puddle, but like sort of the size of the ripples as being price movement, and then the sort of concentric circles as they move out from the puddle hitting the raindrop hitting the water and the puddle moving out, how everything has to move in very uniform fashion in time. Then we move on to Mr. Gann took his sort of analysis of assets and asset price movement, which is really nothing more than the collective perception of value by us human beings on the planet, and we are part of the universe. So, basically we have to follow all the same laws. He took his analysis out to sort of like celestial events and how our solar system and the various bodies within the solar system all interact and create confluence of event forces, if you will. And Olga here, she absolutely loves following these planetary cycles. And there's a very famous GAN publication. In fact, one of my favorite students who I've been working with for years now, I think he's, I don't know whether, I don't know whether, is he, does anybody know what James's Twitter handle is? I actually saw it earlier today, and he has on, what the hell is his name? Is it HR James? Does anybody know what James's handle is on Twitter? Because He's got a cool picture from Gann going way back. Where the hell is his? I thought it was H.R. James. But anyway, the point being that James really loves Gann, and he found, I mean, I guess I can just Google it. Gann soybeans chart. I think it's like 1929. Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place, right? This was his famous prediction of this is Jupiter and this is Saturn, and when they crossed, and James has this on his on his Twitter homepage. That's why I want to show it to you. But the sort of next sort of stage of trying to figure out WD Gann is how do planets and their aspects affect asset prices on planet Earth. And even when Gann was trading this stuff, he said he didn't think that the public was ready for this kind of information. And Mr. Gann did very well. H.R. James, yeah, that's what I thought, but I don't seem to have it. Anyway, thank you, Colleen, for looking that up. But you know, this is a great historical context of Mr. Gann and him using planetary aspects to call markets. And I'm a big fan of the EVUs, Earth, Venus, Uranus, 120-degree angular relationships and 90-degree angular relationships. So where was I going with all this? How did I get off on this tangent? Oh, yeah, talking about Olga. So Olga here, which I thought was a really cool tweet, she plots all of the planetary angles, and I don't know what asset this is in particular, but it's kind of cool study, eh? Always a student of the market. And keep in mind, everybody, at 30 years into this, I am still a student of the market. And when I do the Gann modules in our education program, I even say, look, you know, I'm still learning about this stuff, and you're always learning. How can I get better? How can I get better tools, better signals, better 30 years into this, and it never ends. All right, so here was the bot setup that was working away, and you can see that that level was finally hit here. And I thought this was really interesting in that the OKCoin, the forwards contracts, remember I showed you forwards, sentiment, proxy, all that, they were running up and hitting these bullish objectives. But the Americans, of course, are totally frozen out of this space. And I do remember when I posted this in the lounge and tweeted this out that, you know, Colleen here studying up really hard. She's like, well, I'm still waiting on Coinbase. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. So, you know, on that same day, I put out sort of notices, bullish ABC targets have now been hit. And remember I had said earlier, this was a little bit concerning. Yes, we did have this coil breakout in MACD, and that's kind of like, you know, the Ethereum was getting going, all that. But we never did break out to new highs on MACD here. And what worried me was now you saw how the market pulled back here. That's this pullback. Then we pushed to another new high here, and MACD is nowhere near new highs. And now, my oversold indicator is now starting to say, oh boy, now I am officially overbought. So put it all together, the writing was on the walls that, you know, this could get troublesome. And then also remember too, Mr. Bollinger coming out and saying, you know, if price is going to fail, this is probably where price is going to fail. Be careful, pay attention. And actually, even on the site, I don't think I tweeted it out, but on the site, we were talking about Bitcoin and Bollinger Bands and using studies like MACD. And this happens to be one of the tools of Mr. Bollinger, his BB percentage B. In essence, this is an excellent divergence hunter. And there is, you can see the MACD bearish divergence. And this is what I call a double divergence. You know, Brian, he loves his double Ds. And you can see on Mr. Bollinger, right, this is where he tweeted out, right, if price is going to fail, this is where it's likely to fail. You can actually see the beautiful divergence in Mr. Bollinger's tool here. Fantastic stuff. And really, I got to get off my butt, and I've got to get these volatility measures, indicators, module finished for our education program. I've just been so slacking about it. But hopefully everybody can see that you can use volatility divergences as well as to help see trades set themselves up. I often suggest that we go, 3 steps process should be: number one, hunt for trade location. And if you can learn one thing, please, everybody, learn the power of these reload zones. 61.8 to 78.6 fib. You can see the divergence that came in MACD, and you could argue that this is a bullish double divergence here in the MACD indicator. All right, we got this bigger one, down, up, down, breakout, but there's also this smaller one in here. And lo and behold, we look at our little volatility indicator, and gee whiz, there's a nice divergence that developed there. But the point here is that 3-step setup, and everybody on YouTube, you want some free information here? This shit works, man. I swear it works. Just you got to be patient and disciplined and wait for it. And of course, if the setup doesn't work, you have to respect stops and get the hell out. But number one, trade location. And Grim was even talking to the level oneers today about this. Location, location, location. What's the 3 words in real estate? What's our number one reason? We always want to start with, are we in an acceptable trade location? Then, once we're in location, think reload zones. It's the simple concept that I want all level oneers to leave our program with right off the bat. We can start talking about harmonics and stuff like that for trade location later on. But just for level oneers, just to get you going, learn this concept called the reload zone. So if we are in reload zones, then you start looking at your indicators. And in this case, what a beautiful example of an excellent divergence, not only in price momentum, MACD, but also in volatility, Bollinger Bands, percentage B indicator. So you want to call this, the cool part about it is these 2 studies are completely unrelated. This is studying price momentum. This is studying volatility. So we get our indicator confirmation. Now, structure is going to be a little bit tough off of these. Maybe you traded the fractal off of this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is not an easy trade to take. But nonetheless, we had indicator confirmation. We had trade location. If you wanted to trade the fractal, so be it. And you can see the end results. And then here we are coming up into a reload short zone. We've got location. We've now got divergence. And of course, there's Mr. Bollinger's. We've got volatility divergence. Right? And down we go. So interesting, as we speak right now, we have a potential divergence coming in, and all the level oneers today just sort of went through this. We won't know that this is actually a bullish divergence until we can actually get the MACD to go back up through here. And that would imply there's got to be some sort of rally here to get us out of this, malaise. And what I'm worried about is through the weekend, we actually emmed out here on MACD. So we're way, way, way too early to call divergence. It's a potential. That's the best we can do now. But this is a potential divergence since we've made lower lows in price, but higher lows so far in MACD. Now, this could very easily come down and bust this bottom, and that just totally disappears. Keep in mind, we're working right in the face of this nasty double bearish divergence that's working. And then we go down and look at our volatility indicator, and there is no sign of divergence now yet. Yesterday afternoon, we did potentially see, again, we have to wait for the W to actually confirm, to actually tell it it's confirmed divergence. Well, you can see that there was a potential one, but then we made new lows, so that basically got wiped out, right? All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Mr. Bollinger and why I think he was saying, you know what, if price is going to fail, this is probably where it's going to fail. Be careful. And really cool sort of juxtaposition of volatility indicators in divergence and confirming, and price momentum indicators in divergence and confirming here. Really, really good example. Colleen says V bottom cool tool. What's it called? Yeah, on a site like TradingView, and really I haven't gone into it today, but and I haven't done it up officially in the school program because and Stuart, I see you over there on YouTube. I'm waiting for your Keltner channel's contribution, please. But in your indicators, all you got to do is just type in ball, right? And up comes Bollinger Bands. The bands themselves, right? That's the first one. And it's Bollinger Band percentage B. See how I did that, Colleen? Pretty simple, right? And, another way we can use Bollinger Bands is actually to measure the width and what we call Bollinger Band squeezes. Where volatility comes right out of the price. Now, we won't get into that today, but this was the first way that I learned how to use Bollinger Bands back in the early 1990s. Can you believe that? That's how long ago. And I could probably find in my files, I've got the old T-bond chart where it basically did a squeeze like this and then broke down and it led to a massive bear market. And Colleen, do you remember we were doing volume profile and we were talking about developing value, and we were saying this was in last week's Broiler Chickens, I think we were talking about how this was the market accepting above value. Do you remember we did that? Anyway, long and short of it here, there's a good example of a Bollinger Band squeeze, and you can see when the bands, using this tool, BBW, the widths, when they squeeze in like this, that's often setting up a trade. Okay, so I kind of got off on a tangent there. My apologies. Where should we go next? I guess back to the Twitter feed. So bottom line here, came into all these bullish objectives. Doink, hit, woohoo! If you took this bot setup, ring that register. And what was really cool about this was it took like another, here it is. Like it took another day. But I was so pleased to see when Colleen posted in the lounge, I had little alarms go off. My Coinbase bot target was hit. I'm feeling like I'm understanding this a little bit better. That made me so happy. This was tough, man. They really made it a grind here, but it eventually worked up to its objective. I also had on here, like this was this first bot, boom, 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 off of that resolution there. And I also put on a second bot, and I called this the bot 2, the more aggressive approach. So you could have technically had two setups working, but what was really interesting was literally the moment that this level was hit, the whole bull market stopped on a dime. And what was fascinating was there anything that happened in the world right on this event? The answer is yes. If I ask something like that, clearly the answer is yes. Turns out that Mr. Powell started his semi-annual testimony in front of the U.S. Congress literally within an hour of that event. And write this down, people, because I see this happen a lot. Bitcoin loves to move right into these events, whether it be something like this is called Humphrey Hawkins, when the chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve goes in front of the U.S. Congress for one session in front of the House, one session in front of the Senate, twice a year. Also, FOMC meeting events when the Fed might change short-term interest rates. Also, when we have big political events, things like elections. I do believe that Bitcoin's probably going to pivot right around this congressional testimony by the investigator into this whole Russian collusion thing, Mr. Mueller. So note that down. Bitcoin absolutely loves to move into these event windows, and it's actually quite alarming how it does it. And in fact, actually on the site, we sort of made it a challenge. Every event horizon, I'm going to put a little note on. Question is, why the hell's the damn chart? thought I had it on here. Yeah, I'm going to put a little note on my charts noting exactly the fundamental event. I thought I had it on here. Yeah, there it is. So like literally on this event, Humphrey Hawkins right there. And that's literally the market topped and dropped instantly as soon as he started talking. What was really interesting about Mr. Powell's testimony, which really surprised me, was I got the impression that actually he was relatively positive about Bitcoin. He just crapped all over Facebook. And I think you could make the argument that basically this is a commentary about altcoins. I noticed, like I said, on this crap out event, Ethereum lost its lunch, right? And I thought we had the write up here. But basically, I guess I had a different chart up here. But that bullish bot setup that we talked about coming out of here, the market rallied up. And then, like I said, literally, you can see 7 o'clock, 10th of July, boom. By 11 o'clock, the story was over. And as I had said earlier, and Sjord, congratulations to you. I know you were on this trade. I basically on the site said, look at this bot setup has failed. You got to walk away. You got to square out your position. And hopefully everybody can see, well, gee whiz, I'm glad I squared out and just, said I was wrong, journal about the trade. And, it failed. It's just simple as that. Did I act appropriately? Did I take appropriate risk? And had you not, then you'd be looking at it now going, oh, Jesus, what have I done? Right. So really, really good testament about when these setups fail, you got to get the hell out and you better square up. So moving forward, like I said, really pleased to see that the people that took the bot off of Bitcoin, they got paid. Way to go, guys. Then, of course, boom, out comes Humphrey Hawkins. And like literally within moments, and here, sometimes the bot, it actually goes up further than the target. And usually I say, okay, well, who's buying if it's going up beyond bot target levels. In this case, here's a great example where you had better have had your order working and just got out because literally, like I said, as soon as Mr. Powell started talking, this thing just fell right out of bed. Here is that ETH setup. And, I like, guys, to be, remember how I started this call off. I'm not here to blow smoke up anybody's ass. I'm not here to say that, hey, I'm always right. Look at me, follow me, take my trades. You're guaranteed to make money. I will never say that. And frankly speaking, I don't give position recommendations because I know I will be wrong at least 33% of the time. I say build your plan. I teach you all the different ways that you can build setups. I teach you all the different ways you can do fundamental analysis. And something like crypto, you have to understand cost of production and what is the value of one of these things. And I might argue one of the reasons why Ethereum is not doing so well is I still can't figure out what the heck the value on one of these Ethereums is. This thing's just trading purely on momentum. So anyway, open book, open page. I'm the type of person that if I see something that is happening, I will tweet it out. I'll get in front of it so that nobody can come back to me and say, Brian, you weren't telling the truth about that. I mean, long and short of it here, this idea was failing. Really good analogy of bullish and bearish impetus on this tweet. This was that Ethereum trade, and notice how on that dump, and this is sort of all around that conversation about Facebook's Libra, and as I said, Mr. Powell, to a certain degree, I don't think he really crapped on Bitcoin, which I find fascinating. And maybe that's even a little bit of a tipping of the tell that maybe the United States government is actually a little bit more involved in Bitcoin than we all in the public realized. Yeah, I called it a store of value. I think maybe even the U.S. government might be How do you spell his Twitter account? Who's that? Mr. Powell? I wouldn't mind following Mr. Powell's Twitter account. But anyway, really good example of the Bears waking up here. So do we have any level oneers in the call here? Alec, Cole, Mark, are any of you guys current level oneers? Anybody over on YouTube, are you current level oneer? You just went through this, like, I guess, what, a couple weeks ago? Understanding volume flow right here. And you can see big red bar, boom, right? And then you look down at your indicator and there's a big fat M. Uh-oh, that's not good. So really, really good example of the Bears waking up. But this is kind of what I wanted to show you guys earlier. I see this often, and take a note of this. Yeah, Daniel's short. Way to go, Daniel. Oh, you dog. But I often see this with MACD is you'll get these coils. Take a screenshot of this, everybody. Right? Anybody who's kind of like, I want to watch this value and get some value, I want to watch this video and get some value out of this, give me some information I can use. Often I'll see these coils when you write them, when you see this, right? Draw your lines off of the higher lows and the lower highs. Often I see this happen. And actually, when I saw this happen, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, geez, I've seen this before. You get this big breakout push to the upside. And then what ends up happening is this is actually a momentum trap. It'll roll over and it'll just crank to the downside. So take a screenshot of that, everybody. Write down what I said there. That's incredibly valuable journal information. The next time you see one of these momentum coils in MACD histogram, sometimes you'll get a breakout that's a head fake, and then the MACD histogram will just absolutely collapse. Let's see if I can show you that here in real time. So there was the coil. There was the head fake breakout. Not much volume on the breakout, a little bit suspicious. And then there's the absolute collapse on the other side of that. And what ends up happening is we just end up coming down and testing these original bottoms here. I've seen that happen so many times in my career. It just makes you sick. You'd think I'd learn from it. There is that volume impetus signal. Like we said, the Bears waking up, right? And I put out tweets saying, well, it looks like the Bears just woke up. And you can see the Bears just keep coming. Where the hell are the damn bulls? If Ethereum is such a great product, why are the bulls not stepping up and buying? Interesting just here looking at this chart now. Colleen, do you see anything that might be jumping out at us here? I love talking to Colleen about this because, what a perfect example. This is Hoag's 80% trade. So you can see we were above value up top here. All right, there's value high right there. So we were above value. We came back down into value. We accepted into value. And then if we accept into value, the rule is that 80% of the time we should come down and tag value low. Doink, done. Also a really good example of AB equals CD harmonics, AB, CD, doink. Interesting to see that on this event, this might be creating a potential bullish divergence now. And interestingly enough, we could actually change this now. We might, if we're really, really lucky, we might be forming the base for a double bullish divergence, just like we had all those double bearish divergences on things like Bitcoin. So interesting, level we're coming down. We're below value now. I don't think it's a good idea to be, chasing shorts here. You can clearly see the M, and you can see where Brian's bot got busted out. I think there was some people even on the site who were taking this M short here. Congratulations to those that did. That's not really a setup I would take. But somebody had asked today, and so if somebody can make like a time mark or something on this video, maybe I'll even do it later on. Brian, they said, Brian, I don't understand this concept of trapped bulls and trapped bears. So here's a really good, actually working example in real time. If we actually looked at this range and we asked, okay, where did the last time the market was bearish, but somebody said, no, 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 no more down, you go up now. And that, of course, was right here, right at the bottom. And we often call this our institutional fingerprint because, in essence, remember, institutions put tops and bottoms in the market, right? And you could argue that this was one too. And we just simply say, okay, look at, if institutions knew that this thing was going up here, right? Because they always know ahead of time where they want to take markets. Where did they stop the bear and where did they start the new bull? And I think, in my opinion, that was basically the bar that made the low plus the preceding bar. So the bears were in control. The bears were in control. They were dumping it, dump, 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 dump. And somebody just kept buying and buying. And notice these big tails, right? Price would go down. Somebody would buy it back up. Price would go down. Somebody bought it back up. And eventually the market just simply ran out of sellers. So I would say that's a really important level there. Now, I often make the reference of trapped bulls and trapped bears and how they, this is more ethereal. What usually ends up happening is you can actually see this in the DOM and you can see this in persons' behavior that aren't even looking at price charts. They don't even understand technical analysis. This is really more just about like human psychology. So just imagine, and especially, like Fat Cat, I don't sell at a loss. I used to have clients that would say, Brian, I don't really care. I'm not selling my asset at a loss. I'm not booking the capital loss. I'll hold on to it forever. Think little old lady, right? I remember I used to have one client in particular, Mike, and his name was Mike Hunt, right? That was really his name. Mikehunt. That was his name. No joking. That was actually his name. Anyway, Mr. Hunt, he would always tell me, I am not selling this at a loss. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. So if, and in this case, it's a down one, but you can make the same case up markets. It's the exact opposite. But if somebody was like, okay, this is a bear, man, I'm selling, right? And they sold down in here, they would like to do nothing more than, okay, I'm wrong, but I know, I gotta be careful, right? Thanks, Colleen. But they would like to do nothing more than, actually, I think his name was Tom Hunt. Yeah, thinking back now. I mean, that's like 20 years ago. Jesus. Yeah, a good 15 years ago at least. Anyway, they would like to do nothing more than just, like, I'm sure I sold my position. My broker called me up and said, you got to sell this thing. So I sold it. I want to do nothing more than just get out of this trade. So that's what I mean. But in this case, they'd be trapped bears. I'm a bear. I'm getting my ass kicked, but I'm not going to sell at a loss. I want to get out of this trade. All right. Notice price came down into that level. Remember, it's an AB equals CD target anyway. Price came down into that level and mysteriously right down here, see that? Right down here, all of a sudden the price snapped back. Now, why? Well, first off, maybe the institutions that put the floor into this asset right here, they don't want to see it go back down through there. So they're going to step up and they're going to defend this level. That happens all the time. But also, too, think about my buddy Mike Hunt. I'm sure it's Tom. Let's call him Tom because that's just going to be too difficult to say. Tom Hunt. He shorted, he sold here, and he's just praying to God that it gets back here so he can buy the position back, square everything up, no harm, no foul. So whoever asked, can you please talk a little bit about trapped bulls and trapped bears? I think that was you, Dennis, wasn't it? Yeah. Does that make sense now? Good. And you can make the argument, see up in here, right? these wicks up here, there were probably some trap bulls that were like, hey, this is a W. That Beamish guy says buy W's, right? Oh, crap, I bought it and it's dumping. Oh, Jesus, well, I don't want to sell at a loss. So they bring the market back up as soon as it gets into his level there. All right, square it up, right? And in this case, the supply just overwhelmed demand and that stopped the rally. So you can make an argument this is a good example of trapped bears right here. And you could make the argument this is a really good example of trapped bulls right there. Make sense? I think you could make the argument there's a bunch of trapped bulls right up in these wicks up here. Oh, I want to buy. Oh, crap. Right? And if we ever get up into that area, they would be more than happy to square up their positions. Look at that. Look how they did it here. Right? Oh, I'm a bull. FOMO buy. Oh, crap. Oh, Jesus. Oh, it's going to rally up. Okay, cool. Whew. Oh, thank goodness I got out of that trade. The trapped bear, or the trapped bulls in this case, squared up their trade and got out, and then boom, price dumps. So really good example there of trapped bulls. Is this enough to call a bottom? No way. It's a one piece of the puzzle, right? And I mean, let's see if anybody's listening on YouTube. How many reasons should we consider taking a trade? And Daniel, you're not allowed to answer this. Anybody, Casey, you're not allowed to answer this. I see you guys over there on YouTube. Colleen, you're not allowed to answer this. Anybody who's not a TRI, or let's see if any of you were actually listening. Hey, good, excellent, good, all right. Location is one reason. You could look at this and go, okay, this isn't a terrible location. And then also think about Mr. Bollinger's tweet, right? Really good example. This is the 4 hour. Actually, I think I even had a better example of this. Let's see, was it on Stamp? One of these charts, I actually painted that trap bull, trap bear scenario. Yeah, right here. Do you remember you guys asked me talking if we change this chart? Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Where are we? Back here. If we change this chart to a daily price chart, we see that level, do you see the trap bulls here now, Dennis? Right in these wicks here. And we talked about, this is why I absolutely love candle body highs for trade location. Do you see how they took the market up into those wicks? And all of those trap bulls right there went, oh, thank God, get me the hell out of here. That makes sense, Dennis? Do you see that again? And that's why I really love to hunt these candle body close levels for trade location. In this particular case, we had an AB equals CD. We had 78.6, and we had those candle body highs. So in this case, you can make the argument that those trapped bulls, trapped bears, institutional fingerprint, all that kind of talk, this really did paint one hell of a trade location. And it shouldn't surprise us that Mr. Bollinger was as excited as he was and tweeted out the way that he did on this event. Also on the site too, and this is what I was talking about in the daily briefs, was we had this funny little doji bar, and this is off the 4 hour. You could make the argument on this doji bar, there were a bunch of trapped bulls inside that doji bar wick right there. And I think the market got up into that level, and all of those guys that bought into here were just like, whew, get me the hell out of there. Get me out, get me out, get me out, get me out. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember on Twitter, somebody posted that there was like 7,500 Bitcoins that were sold right up in here. And as soon as that 7,500 Bitcoins was sold, the market dumped right after that. Any of you guys on YouTube, did you see any of that? There's like 90 people over there on YouTube watching this. Did any of you see that? That should have been your tell that, oh, I bet you that was a trapped bull that just got the hell out of there. I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. All right, moving on. This sucks. You know, this is more of this sort of talk to start off this conversation today. I ain't going to sugarcoat it. There is absolutely no doubt about it. This is not an altcoin friendly market. No doubt about it. And I even had people on Twitter saying to me, okay, when moon? and all that kind of stuff. And I said, look, as long as you keep seeing M's in these indexes, there is no altcoin market here. It isn't here. And you can't push a chain. If it's one thing I definitely learned, in my time in the market, you cannot push a chain. It's impossible. You just can't do it. It's absolutely impossible. And in this kind of scenario here, the only thing that's actually going to stop this bear and start this bull is if we start seeing W's come in. And I remember a week or two ago, I was putting out, when talking to you guys on YouTube and stuff, and just saying, okay, maybe we're going to W out here. We're getting close, but then bam, new M's right across the board. Now, the one sort of good part about this, which I like, is that I think this is more a conversation about Bitcoin dominance than it is about how crappy altcoins really are. And frankly speaking, it would be really good to see on these altcoins if there was some sort of value metric that we could figure out where is the cost of production for coins and stuff like that. Because if we go and look, and this is sort of like the person who asked me right off the bat, how are your recent trades doing? I picked up a little of this BTT and I picked up a little bit of Doge here. How are they doing? And they're not really doing a heck of a lot. What I've noticed, and I did up this chart, I don't know whether I tweeted it out, but I was definitely putting it out in the lounge on the site, is that if we actually look at these indexes in US dollar terms, not in Bitcoin terms, they don't look nearly as disastrous. So I think that, yes, you can see this is the altcoin Binance big cap indexes. You can see the W here. You can see how they rallied up. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the Litecoin or the altcoin rally of late was just simply the fact that Litecoin was rallying into its halving event. And interestingly enough, Litecoin has kind of crapped out about a month or so ahead of the event, almost exactly as we've been sort of talking about in these shows recently. The sort of short-term up move, I think you could make the argument that as soon as that trend line was lost off of the April and June lows, and you can see how it emmed out and broke, I think that basically means that this recent up that we've seen in alts is done. And of course, there's a big fat M. Nobody likes M's. And my hunch is we probably got to come back down to this trend line. You can see the market's doing that right now. In actual fact, we're watching things like Ethereum on the site. And what's fascinating is to watch the different price behavior relative to what exchange you're on. But you can see, off of that altcoin index, and keep in mind that Ethereum is a big chunk of this altcoin big cap index on Binance. Well, I mean, you can see that M there. It's pretty well defined. So really, I don't think it should surprise anybody that alts are back in the cupboard. Also, sort of to that effect, if we just pop on over, take a look at Litecoin itself, you can see here is 38.2 off of the entire range. Remember, we had lots of conversations about Bitcoin zipping up into that and blowing through it, and I thought it would get a little bit of respect. We can look at that in a bit if you want, but in essence, Litecoin here never could even get back to its 38.2 of its recent range. So, something like Litecoin, we are still in, Mr. Burchett tells us that really we can't call this a bull until 38.2 has actually been resolved. And then, our sort of talk, and I tweeted this out earlier today, we had this very well-defined bull AB equals CD. There is the objective, hit it right on the nose. If we look at just this 52-week range reload zone, we rallied up into that reload zone nicely and failed. A week or two ago, I was talking about potential fractal tops on the weekly basis. That confirmed here with this dump here through the weekend. And you can see Litecoin now has considerably backed off in the short term here. And actually, and I can see that we're pressing lower here as we speak. So nobody said this down move was done. fact, just a quick sort of side to that, the tweets and stuff that I did put out recently, thinking about downside objectives, I think to me, we got to come down here to this like 94, 95, 9600, come back to this trend line support, which is pretty weak anyway. This bigger AB equals CD, and this purple smaller AB equals CD. So that's why I call it a confluence of levels. We've got reload zones. We've got AB equals CDs, 2 of them. And we've got this cheeky little trend line. And of course, as Colleen absolutely loves, you can see now we're below value here. So really, putting on new short trades at this point, I don't think is a very smart idea. If we zoom out a little bit, even on this perspective, you can see that we're below value. So, too late to be shorting. That's definitely for sure. And I still think, 10,400, we could still dump another $100 or $1,000 here. Don't be surprised, people. Anyway, back to that Litecoin conversation. It's having an event, and what I wanted to do was see if I could pull up the Litecoin chart from last cycle. Maybe Phoenix has it. It's weird how Stamp didn't have that, eh? Yeah, we don't need this. Don't need this. Don't need that. All right. Back in 2015, I guess it was 2015, 2016. Oh, this is 4 hour. Sorry, guys. All right. There was the last Litecoin halvening event, and interestingly enough, the halvening event itself was right into here. It was somewhere right around, I think it was like the beginning of August, just like this year. The interesting thing about this, and I sort of tweeted that out this morning, was that there was a Chinese Ponzi scheme running through this rally. So prices went really, really far. But really good examples of how these coins like to rally ahead of the halvening events. And then usually the actual halvening event is actually pretty quiet. So I would actually make the argument that really there's nothing new happening here, people. This is actually extremely cliche. I don't mean to be rude. I'm not trying to be insulting, but it's actually stunningly cliche. So, theoretically, halvening event for Litecoin is somewhere here, beginning of August. I think August 5th, they said. So my hunch is that we probably find some sort of technical bottom in here, then rally up, and then the halvening event is a relatively quiet event. I actually think that's probably what's going to happen here. Where exactly this Litecoin finishes bottoming, I'll tell you this. There's one guy on the site who's rooting for lower prices here. So, and like you saw in the lounge, another OG on the site, Daniel, he's short and he's making lots of money on the short side. So congratulations, guys. Way to go. So keep in mind that at TRI, people play both the long and short side of the market. And I love that. Thomas the Bear, he loves shorting this stuff. So people make money at TRI going both directions. I suppose if we're just taking a quick boo at this Phoenix, if we're thinking levels here for Litecoin, where should it sort of stop? I'm kind of thinking, good old reload zones, all that kind of talk. Oops, did I do that right? Let's go there. All right, so 38.2 didn't get a lot of respect, and actually I like that because then that means we're probably going to have to come back up just like we saw out of Bitcoin. Here comes the 50% rule. That's usually a pretty powerful level. If we think sort of institutional fingerprints, right, we can start thinking where did those guys, where did they stop the last bear and start a new bull? Looks like in this candle here, and these candles in here. So that's pretty important level. Notice right off the 50% level, there's also these levels right in here, boom and boom. Also think too, right, here's a whole bunch of trapped bears who would love nothing more than get released. And I think that's exactly what the market's doing for them right now, is letting them get released. You can see how through here, These trap bears, right, big spike down, that gave them the opportunity to get released, and you can see how the market snapped back. But ultimately, if I was actually thinking of where the heck is the bottom on this, of course, we just default back to our good old reload zones. And my hunch is it's probably somewhere in this area, right down in here. Ironically enough, the original actual W breakout on the weekly basis is actually right off of that level there. We might have to dump all the way down into these levels. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. So, hopefully everybody can see the very noticeable rolling top. Didn't really set up that great of a M for us. This is probably a bit more of a professional's trade. If we maybe zoom down to like a 4-hour. Yeah, notice this is not easy. I'm not going to say for like the public, this is almost next to impossible. But I think the trader's trade was basically hitting that reload zone right in there. I don't know whether you can see that or not, but clearly that was one hell of a shorting window. And you can make an argument, just like I said a few minutes ago, whole bunch of trap bulls in this wick and this wick and this wick, right? So we get up into that area. So the bulls all get their release. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That would have been a damn difficult trade to take. I suppose there's probably people on Twitter and stuff that'll tell you that, hey, I did it. I'm the man. Subscribe to my newsletter. Make money all the time. So be it, if that's the case. But I think that's probably where the level was. An old timer like me, you can see now we have trade location, right? I suppose on counter trend rallies. Let's keep an eye on reload zones heading back up. If I wanted to short this thing, I would be looking, location. There's your shorting window. There's your buying window. So really, I only want to act if either we dump down into here, we get signs of divergence from our indicators, we put in a W, and away we go. Or conversely, we rally up into here, we get signs of divergence up here, we put in an M, and away we go. So that's really my ideal setup, and that's like, like the El Tangonator. You probably heard me talk about that kind of setup. That would be sort of those kind of trades. So, geez, I guess we ought to get back to the Twitter feed. So, yeah, conversation here. Altcoins, it just isn't their market right now. This is all about Bitcoin dominance. The people that are like, Bitcoin's the only thing that should be bought in cryptocurrency space, they are shining right now. They are just loving it. Their vindication. They are like, this was it. I told you this was going to happen. I don't know one way or the other. I'm one of these guys, strong opinions loosely held. No doubt about it, the market's speaking to me. And really, you could make the argument the market spoke to all of us on this M failure, which came in, it looks like about the middle of May. And, I don't know whether you guys have heard recently, but I haven't been buying any altcoins. I picked up a little of these two over the past little while. I'm more than happy to dump them. They will not be nanny nibbles. If these things fail, I'll just simply walk away and book the loss. But my sort of like dollar cost averaging, slowly accumulating altcoins, I've been on pause now for a while. And really, there's no hurry with nanny nibbles. There's no timeline associated with that. So I'm just going to cool my jets until I start seeing W's in these things. There was that call that I made reference to with Mr. Bollinger. Basically a brilliant call by Mr. Bollinger. And he's a consummate professional. That doesn't surprise me at all. Well, he has his own indicators named after him, right? That's how smart he is. Great analogy of that trade setup. Candle body highs off the daily 78.6. Bearish momentum divergences. Really stupid. M's that came in on OBV. The bears waking up. I mean, just so much anecdotal evidence that this market broke here. I really did like the idea that the bullish bots on these Bitcoin contracts all basically told you to get out. I didn't really get a short entry on this. It just like dumped. So I've been just sort of frozen out of a trade here. But, guys like Daniel that are over there in the lounge, they've been shorting away here. They've been trading their setups, rocking it. So, I mean, it's really just, what setups work for you. As I said, full disclosure, open book. I paint right here. Ouch, that was painful. Stopped like a rented mule. And I'm that type of guy. I'm not going to tell you that I'm right 100% of the time, and I will tell you when I'm wrong. And, I might lose a lot of followers. I might lose a lot of upvotes and all that kind of stuff, and people might not be interested. But I'd rather give you the straight goods and just show you what a failed setup looks like when it happens. That more conversation about the spreads, something was just not right about these spreads, and now you can see the spreads have actually moved to new lows. And what's worrisome now is we're actually now starting to lose this sort of bullish tone of the market, in that we're coming up against the zero line on these spreads. If these spreads start actually accepting below zero, that means the market's moving into backwardization. It means that there's a supply shock. It means, bulls, cool your jets. And, real-time sort of report on that. Here is the spread matrix. And for all current level tours who are working on this right now, in the level 2 chat room, I went and just did a step-by-step how you build this study on your charts. So just please go if you have questions. I saw quite a few of you were like, how on earth do I build these studies? I went through step-by-step how to build them. So you can see here is Bitcoin. Right now it's sitting at a premium of $72. You can see Litecoin sitting at a premium of 86 cents. Uh-oh, that's troublesome. And oh boy, it actually looks like Ethereum right now sitting at a premium of 21 cents. Uh-oh. So you can see the bull's in trouble here, right? And this is just a pure sentiment proxy. If we start accepting below zero, then it means the market's going into backwardization and it's not happy. So be forewarned, right? No doubt about it. And you can see there's sort of our report of the altcoins. Those M's that came in, it's just, oh boy. If you were trading these things, even like Joe Sixpack, that kind of strategy, leverage trader, margins trader, derivatives trader, right? You got to just walk away, when these M's fail. Bulls, got to cool your jets. Okay, moving on. I don't know how long I've been talking, but I'm sure some people are getting pretty bored. More talk of regulation. Ironically enough, the irony of all of this is you could actually make an argument that June 2nd, oh, thank you, Tony. I want to write that down on the chart. Thank you for popping in here, Tony. I appreciate that. Where'd I have that? I think I had it over here. I think it was on this. Yeah, here it is. So let's we will go 060219, and we'll even say, because I and remember, TRI is all about 1 + 1 = 3. I'm not going to sit here and screw Tony over and go, oh, hey, this is my study, and I came up with this number, and look how smart I am. All right, so I'm even going to put Tony. I don't know. Should we do Tony? How about I'll go TC, and that way we all know it's you, okay? Anyway, so the point of the matter here is, and actually, like I said, to start off this conversation, I even was like, please, Joe Kernan, right? Try and learn what is cost of production. Is it on the screen? I think it's on the screen. Can you not see that, Colleen? Right there. Please don't get your audience to go and buy Bitcoins up here and say you're buying value at $10,000 when we know that the cost of production is like $2,500, $3,000. So anyway, okay, back to our story. This is one of the dangers, and I don't think enough people in crypto, including myself, really realize this, that, they always say, careful what you wish for. You might just get it good and hard. Everybody in crypto is like, oh, we want acceptance. We want mass adoption. We want this to become mainstream. We want, the 1% to come on board. And, the irony of this is, and this happens to be Canada, but in essence, yeah, the regulators are coming on board and they are coming down hard on these exchanges. No doubt about it. So just interesting, more anecdotal evidence of the acceptance. I was kind of joking in our site feed recently. This is hilarious tweet. Obviously, Mr. Trump, and I suppose you can understand that he has to defend the U.S. dollar, right? If Mr. Trump comes out and says, screw the U.S. dollar, let's all go buy Bitcoin. Oh my goodness, that's not a good sign for the leader of the U.S. dollar to say that. So really, it shouldn't surprise anybody that he has to come out and say this. But actually looking at all the different responses and stuff, I thought was really cool. And it's interesting because, I think a lot of crypto people really liked Donald Trump to begin with. And I wonder if he lost a lot of supporters with this tweet. I did also see, which I thought was really cool, was that the Let's Have Lunch with Warren Buffett crowd is actually invited Donald Trump to that lunch, and that would be really cool if he was in on that lunch as well. But who knows? Only time will tell. But if you want to, and this is what I said. I mean, I couldn't possibly add anything to this. But if you want to kill an hour or two and just have a chuckle, just go through this tweet and see all the responses, and it's quite amusing. More Fed talk. I put out a tweet recently about WD Gann and how he would be looking at the market. He's a big fan of 50% retracements. So interestingly enough, Bitcoin did a 50% retracement off of its down move. Interesting how none of those altcoins, Litecoin, Ethereum, they couldn't do this. So this is actually a pretty good sign for Bitcoin. It means that, okay, it's acting very sort of harmonically. And think of the puddle, right? That scenario. And interestingly enough, we just talked about this, institutional fingerprints, some trapped bears down in here. They'd love to get released. Also for Colleen, you can see top of value here. This obviously should be a really important test. Do we accept back into value? If we do accept back into value, then it means we have to go visit the other side of value 80% of the time. And then also notice too, 50% is 8,500 here. So if this was left up to Mr. Gann, my hunch is we got to come back down and at least visit this 8,500 level. Really cool chart. Interesting, I'm seeing a lot of stocks. Remember that overstock I was talking about there a few minutes ago? It had a really big rally. I ended up selling out the rest of my position just because the option premiums went to just ridiculous prices. The option premium that I bought, the premium that it went to actually implied like something like 60% higher than where the current market was. So sometimes options do that. And in our level 3ers, we're going through the derivatives modules right now. And we sort of talk about, people who do covered call strategies. You want to wait for options markets to get absolutely nutso stupid, which I think overstock options just got to. And so the premiums just got so high, I had no choice. I had to take profits because they were implying, like I said, like 30, 40, 50% higher on the stock based on the option premiums. But here's another stock that not nearly as big of a performer as overstock, but nonetheless, hopefully everybody can see the W's that are trying to come in. And in an interesting way, they also are in the crypto space to a lesser degree. They tried to float this Kodak coin. So we'll see how this goes. But you can see I just picked some up off of this W. We'll see where she goes. So that was sort of that tweet. I'm not finding many W's in actual coins themselves. But I am seeing a lot of W's in stock-related crypto names. And of course, a lot of our little VCIM names in the crypto space have popped up quite nicely here recently. This might be the end of this consolidation move here. That's totally possible. But we'll see how it goes because I think the stock actually finished down on the day. But, I'm a risk taker. No guarantees from the management, none whatsoever. But I'll buy this W. I'll risk against these lows. And if we lose these lows, I'll just walk away. Next bus in 10 minutes. Here are some, and speaking of which, here are some W's that I see trying to form. And keep in mind, I think it's critical through this kind of environment that if you're going to consider risking your hard-earned money and investing in these altcoins, you better judge them versus US dollar, not Bitcoin. It's interesting, actually, if we look at something like these BTT and Doge versus US dollar, ironically enough, they actually don't look bad. I don't know whether I can get a BTT one, but I know Doge for certain, it actually looks pretty bullish. But versus Bitcoin, it looks like poop. So go figure. That's more of that sort of Bitcoin dominance. This just isn't the altcoins market, but we'll see how it goes. So the point here is I went through all my list and I tried to find names that are putting in W's, and these are weekly W's. I highly, highly encourage all of you to hunt weekly W's. I've said this for years now. I think that's the really good base to start from. And so this would be a shopping list. Now, this is also a commentary on so there is a BTT USD chart. Thank you, Andre. This is also a commentary on multiple listings versus limited listings. I look at this pink coin and I go, ooh, wow, that looks sexy. And then I look and see it's only listed on Trex and it's like, oh, crap. I think until Trex gets out of the pooper, the doghouse, let's maybe refrain from getting too excited about names that are only listed on Trex. We did have one that was posted in the lounge this morning, and sort of the same thing, and I appreciate it. Unfortunately, for the Americans in our audience, your choices are really limited, and your government is making it extremely difficult for you to participate in this market. I feel kind of bad for you guys. But we had one name that somebody had posted that Trex, they're in a bit of a bull market this morning. That was this, what the hell is this thing? UKG, good looking W. And I don't know whether I tweeted this out or not. I think I wanted to hold off on tweeting this stuff. But I was even saying, on the site, hey, in days gone by, I would have bought that W in a heartbeat. But because this is all, and somebody quickly, I think it was Jonas, quickly pointed out that, I thought he said, yeah, Jonas here played, UKG is Trex only. I actually pulled out this sheet, and it turns out that it's traded on this up bit. From what I understand, though, the Americans are not allowed to participate on this up bit. So for you Americans, yeah, you're right. The only market that you can really trade on, and these numbers are almost laughable. But the only market that you can really trade this on would be Trex, and of course, that could definitely be a problem. I'm not quite sure about this up bit. From what I understand, like I said, you Americans are not allowed to participate there. It looks to me like that's the market that's driving this right now. But, if you're not allowed to participate, then you're frozen out. It's just the way it is. And I'll just, I'll say this. Before we had this sort of big brother, U.S. government's just decided that Americans are not allowed to participate in this altcoin space. I don't know. I don't get it. But, hey, it's your elected officials. They're doing this to you. I'm up here in Canada. I don't know what to say to you guys. But in days gone by, without that sort of major political overhang, I would have bought this in a heartbeat. But right now, I'll tell you, I'm frozen right now in this space. Like this systemic risk, and like how I started this conversation off, it's gut-wrenching. It's brutal. And I think it's all political. It's all systemic risk right now. The sad part about it is I don't even, there's going to be the Kabaj coin guys. So to that end, if you see a weekly W that's coming in on a coin that's only listed on Trex, just be careful, okay, everybody? Be careful. That's all I can say. Remember, I don't tell people what to buy or sell. I never, ever tell people you must buy this. You have to buy this. You're guaranteed to make money. Never. I'm not going to put my career into jeopardy like that. I just don't do it. You have to, at the end of the day, make the decision whether you're going to buy or sell something. If I do buy or sell something, you're more than welcome to join me, but I'm never going to tell you you have to do it, or you ought to do it, or I recommend you do it. Never, 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 never. All right, so interesting conversation to see some W's coming in the altcoin space, and you just have to look in the mirror, look at your plan, decide whether you want to take the risk of owning a coin that's just listed on Trex. That's up to you. All right, and then I guess probably just to finish off this video, I've been going on quite a while here, so my apologies, but I really needed this session with the public here. I don't know whether this is a harmonic Gartley or whether this is a harmonic bat. I had some OGers on the site say I wouldn't be surprised if we come down to that 50% level like I told you about just a moment ago. And Upbit is actually partnered with Trex. Thank you, Justin. So there you go. Caveat emptor. Oh, God, never ends. All right. Actually, that's good information to know, Justin. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Again, see, now there's a good example of 1 + 1 = 3. We all work together to get a better idea of this. But anyway, point of the matter here is I have had some people on the site say I expect a 50% retracement. We're not going to accept back into value, and this is going to bot out, and we're going to continue our way higher. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do like this framework where we could work our way back down after the Litecoin halving event. There really isn't any new fundamentals to drive price action going forward. I do understand that there's talk about new ETFs and stuff, but oh my goodness, that's, if anything, I'm almost worried that, you saw what happened. CME listed a product and that was the end of the bull. So maybe this rally up top here is, them getting ready for an ETF, and then we have to pull back down. I don't know. But I absolutely love when you get reload zones within reload zones. So I'm going to be watching for a pullback down into this area. If we start getting divergence into this area, W's start coming in, then I'm going to get ready for a big fat counter trend rally. And if that counter trend rally happens and we get up into 78.6, 88.6 up on the BAT, we start seeing divergence, we start seeing structure, then I'm going to be like, oh boy, get ready. This is probably going to be the end of the move. That's still a million miles away. So there's no hurry here at all. I like to just sort of, conjecture about what the future holds. There's no guarantees that this is how it's going to play out, but this is kind of the roadmap that I'm going to be using. And right now I'm thinking very much like we need to come down to 50% retracements. So we'll see how this goes. Only time will tell. And I think actually we're getting that move now. For the I did this morning because I thought this was really cool. Basically, as the week's going by, in every one of our modules, there's a brand new topic that's covered every single week in the course program. It's a whole new slew of tools for our students to learn. So level oneers, this week was all about MACD divergences. And wow, did we ever get a fantastic lesson in MACD divergences. In fact, this is what I said earlier, I like this as a double divergence. Beautiful signal. Just basically saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the market isn't nearly as strong as you think it is. And sure enough, down we went. The level twoers, they're working on future spreads and building future spread matrices. And so this was a great tweet to them, right? Current level twoers learning about forward spreads and divergences. And a really, really good tell. Remember I put out, I guess last week, if this is a bull, why does this look like this? And it turns out it wasn't a bull. If anything, at best, we're in a range market, top of the range, bottom of the range. I think I've talked to you guys about that Bitcoin chart. I know in recent videos I've talked to you about this, how top of the range, mountain man, bottom of the range was 38.2 off of this, and big fat round numbers, $10,000, right? If I change that to 38.2, good old Ray Barbecue, there he is. And notice that's the bottom end of the range. And actually, ironically enough, what I think is going on right now is I think right now all they're doing is they're just eating wicks and tails. Last week was all about eating this wick. This week is all about eating this tail. And I still think that Bitcoin's just basically stuck in a trading range. Cool tweets, just to show the public, anybody who's watching the Twitter feed, what it is, just typical example, what we do week by week, teaching our people new stuff, new tools to use. And then finally, sort of, what do I think is going to happen here? Of course, this is just my opinion. There's no guarantee in any of this. All this is just my opinion. We've got the technical failure, right? The bears woke up. There's an M in OBV. We have the double bearish divergence in our MACD histogram. We had Willie, our overbought, oversold indicator, getting stupidly overbought. Now, and then, so wow, one hell of a trade setup on the short side there. Structure wise, I just didn't get any structure, which sucked, but that's, it's trader's life. It's the way it goes. Following that event, AB equals CD, and then this big one, AB equals CD, and then, like I said, trend lines and then reload zones. I still feel very confident that we have to work our way down, probably play with below value and the $10,000 big fat round number for a little while here. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, if we're really lucky, and as you can see here, Willie is now officially oversold, stupid, what I like to call. You can see potentially we have new bullish divergences in MACD coming in. And then, level oneers, you did this last week. We might actually have signs that the bear is falling asleep. We actually have to see a candle, and this is the 4-hour OK coin forwards. We have to see a candle that does less than 1.5 million and is a red bar, i.e. meaning the sellers took price down, but they're getting exhausted and there's just not that many of them around. So it's encouraging, but I still think we're working our way lower, and we don't really have any bullish signs per se here. Keep in mind, Willie being stupid is not enough of a reason to justify considering taking a trade. This thing might go into a trending market state where Willie stays stupid a while, or what we call embedded. So just be aware of that. So that's sort of what I'm thinking here for Bitcoin right now. And that basically brings us to the end of the broadcast. So I hope you all got some value out of watching that. Please, if you have constructive comments, don't go and shill your coin. Oh, you got to buy this thing. You're going to make $1 million in the comments. That's a waste of everybody's time. If you have constructive comments, please feel free to post them. If you like the video and you liked what you saw, all the social media people, they love this, upvote, right? Thumbs up this thing, ring the bell, follow us, all that kind of stuff. And remember, just as I said to begin with, please, everybody understand, I'm trying to help. I really am. That's my motivation here. I'm not selling any of these altcoins. I'm just going to sit on the portfolio. If a good chunk of them have to go to zero, well, that was part of the Nanny Nibbles little old lady trade. I'm okay with that. I don't know whether you're okay with that. Only you can answer that. I have a feeling that a lot of people that said that they were little old ladies, when they started, it turns out that they're not little old ladies, and they're underwater by a lot of money, and they're very angry right now. My apologies. I'm not going to change the strategy because I know the strategy works. The question ultimately here is, do these names actually survive the cull by the systemic, the 1% who'd like to put all this stuff out of business. I can't answer that. And what I would say is, if push comes to shove, give yourself some outs. Maybe download the wallet, store the coins on your computer. I'll tell you, I've got a bunch of wallets on my computer. I can tell you right now, I have a bunch of wallets on my computer that are sitting on coins that have been delisted. I'm okay with that, because remember, that was the little old lady plan. I don't know whether you're okay with that. If I have to wait a few years for the market to clean itself up and for it to come back, and then I look on my screen and I say, hey, look, the price is actually more than what I paid for it. Hey, look, the price is actually doubled. I can always move the coins back onto an exchange and then sell half on a double, or whatever my strategy was. I'm perfectly comfortable with that, because remember, I'm a little old lady when it comes to this nanny nibbles. Things like that Ethereum trade that I talked about earlier, bot setups, that's not little old lady. So there, you got no choice. You got to close the position out. So make darn sure you are comfortable with the risk strategy that you employed, and you are following that strategy. Okay, I think I'm done. So have yourselves a great day, everybody. Good luck. PMA for the win. I'm going to be back here next week. We've got the big TRI meetup coming up here at the end of the month, so we might even do one of these shows with a whole group of us TRIers in the background. We'll see how it goes, but for now, I have to go get ready to give my son a good afternoon. So have yourselves a great afternoon. All the best, everybody, and bye for now.